Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is there's too much news to even quote headlines on a freedom-loving, fantastic, we're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time Friday. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it's a faith-filled, freedom-loving Mother's Day weekend. Give your mother a big old hug and a kiss on both cheeks for me, will you please? Tell her thank you. Hopefully she taught you about God, family, and country. Hopefully she set a good example for you. Hopefully she's teaching you the principles that will let you live a wonderful, safe, good quality life and set you up to live with your Father in heaven once again. Welcome to the show. I'm Sam Bushman. Dr. Scott Bradley's with me. freedomsrisingsun.com is website. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, Sam. And this is totally, it's on tangent with you, but off tangent with anything else, maybe.
That's all right. That's how we start out, sir, sometimes.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. It is Mother's Day weekend, and that's wonderful and glorious. Of course, my wife and I are both orphans. Moms and dads both gone, but you would expect that at our age, I'm sure. But it's interesting how important good mothers are. And of course, we could get off on it, fathers. We'll maybe do that around the Father's Day weekend. But Montesquieu wrote in his Spirit of Laws about the importance of virtuous women. And he said, he went so far as to say that if women lost their virtue in a nation, the nation would lose its constitution. And the importance of being able to raise up the next generation, at their mother's knee, if you will, understanding correct and noble principles that will stabilize and allow the nation to project itself into the future cannot be overstated. And I fear oftentimes that I'm kind of the opinion that Satan has always felt like he had his hooks into the men, and there was a foregone conclusion they were going to screw up. But for women, for a long time, there seemed to be a kind of a noble trajectory, if you will.
Yeah, and a protection to some degree.
But here's the problem. I think in today's society, I read statistics all the time. Let's just take pornography, for example. There's very, very, very high percentages of males from very young ages, apparently, that are getting sidetracked with that. And the thing is that I'm finding is that there's actually statistics that are indicating females are getting involved much more heavily than the previous were. There might be a variation in terms of the approach that's used to get the women in, but it is a distraction, proving more and more, it seems, to be problematic for males as well as females. And I think that distracts from every single real marker that's out there for being able to stay on the right path, because relationships that are properly founded and nurtured and kind of allowed to blossom is just being lost. And I'm fearful that the nation needs to do a calibration again to regain a trajectory of virtue. And by the way, I've got a chapter in my book called, it's about the necessity of virtue and morality. I call it the moral imperative. And I think that the moral imperative is sadly not just slipping, but it's in a precipitous plummet in many instances around the world. And in the United States, it's a tragic departure from what our heritage has been. But, you say, wow, we need good moms. Yeah, we sure do.
Amen to that. They say that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that reality, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why Satan, as he continues to refine his attacks and laser-like focuses on a destruction of the family, because he knows that's the core fundamental unit of society that God has ordained and sustained and set up for each of us, with a male and a female together, loving their children, fidelity to one another. The list goes on. Traditional God-ordained marriage and family and everything else. As Satan tries to laser-like destroy and focus on that, he realizes that, the mom is the key. Moms are really key to families. And a lot of times in our society, we want to degrade women or act like women are kind of second rate or they don't matter, or that they, but the truth is that mother status and that female status in the home and that fidelity and that leadership and that humility before God and all these things, they're critical, ladies and gentlemen, for not only liberty to prosper, but society to survive, for that matter. And it's really critical. And so Satan realizes this. That's why back in the day when Randy Weaver was up on the mountain and there was the big fight and Vicki Weaver was standing in her doorway unarmed, I'm going to say that again, standing in the doorway of her own home, unarmed, with a baby in her arms, and the government literally murdered her. No repercussions, no reason or no threat, and then no, accountability whatsoever. And it was a tragic, tragic, tragic situation. And I don't think the nation will ever recover from that kind of thing. And then the continuous assault on abortions. They get rid of Roe versus Wade finally. But then, hey, we have murder medications being shipped across state lines everywhere, and murders taking place on the bathroom floors of women, kind of thing for women. This stuff is disaster. And we have got to bring back the moral compass in this country. We have got to bring back the value, the sacred moral value of life. We got to bring back the sacred central role that mothers play and not mock it, ridicule it, downplay it. We've got to elevate it to its proper godly status. And we do that through respecting our mothers, not only this weekend, but 24/7, 365 and a quarter days a year kind of a thing. We've really got to up the game in America. And the way it happens is with good, honest people like me and you leading the way, Dr. Bradley, and others realizing the importance thereof, and then Americans individually making wise decisions under God's direction to bring about these needed restorative changes that we're discussing here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely. And it begins in the home and in our attitudes. But I'm telling you, the nation seems to be, in my opinion, inextricably marching towards a further degradation of that as we seem to be kind of paving the way for a new draft. And there is a great movement to have it everybody, men and women, we don't have the exact age bracket at this point, 18 to 28, 18 to 35. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing most. But at this point, the discussions have been everybody would serve the government. That's a form of slavery, serfdom to a nation. The 13th Amendment doesn't seem to apply when governments can enslave you. But here's the deal. When they say there are no deferments, okay, so other than if, let's say, you're missing a leg or something, I mean, if there's a physical, a challenge that's there that they can't do, or a mental challenge that's below a certain capacity, everybody would serve. It doesn't matter if you got 5 kids. And these are still in discussion. They have not been passed. But there are people that would say, regardless, if a woman, let's say the age bracket's 18 to 35, and a woman's 32 years old and she has 5 children, she goes. So who will rock the cradle becomes the question again, as you mentioned so astutely earlier.
The government combined with the gangs will rock the cradle, sir.
Here's the problem. Yeah, you're right. That's what their assumption is. But there is nothing. I mean, I think back about, I've told stories occasionally about an uncle of mine that went off to Europe for World War II, and his mom was a Danish immigrant back in the 1890s, and her faith, I think her prayers prayed him through the war. I mean, the prayer of a mother, I don't think can be overrated. I think that fervent love of a truly maternal instinct I'm afraid it's being lost in the nation in so many ways.
It is, and that's why we do these programs, though, to remind people, to bring people back, to try to center people on Christ, to try to center people on God, family, and country, try to center people on the appropriate relationships that God has ordained, to try to help people understand the significance of. I mean, every study that's credible has pointed to Mom and dad are the anti-drug. Mom and dad's involvement in children's lives saved children and literally helped children become productive, stable, God-fearing members of society. And that the importance of fidelity of man to woman and woman to man as one, married couple, welcoming children, this fundamental family, it's been documented through the years, through the decades, over and over and over as the key. And we seem to just dismiss it and mock it and ridicule it. And dad's a buffoon and mom needs to leave dad and do something real with her life. And, these lies have got to stop. All right, we got a lot to discuss. We'll move on to some other topics. But I'm telling you, wish your mother a happy Mother's Day. And don't do it just this weekend. Do it year round, would you please? Sam Bushman, Dr. Scott Bradley in seconds on Liberty Roundtable Live.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. He had his incredible weekly webinar last night, as he always does, Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Get your ticket to ride by going to freedomsrisingsun.com, and then you can get your ticket and join them live and participate. Otherwise, you can watch it later. You can watch it on, Rumble, and, where else is it, Doctor?
Well, it's BitChute and Rumble. And by the way, the channels on BitChute, if you go to bitchute.com and then you put the channel in, Freedom's Call, no apostrophes or spaces. And on Rumble, it's Freedom's Call 1787. So you go to the main, website, and then under the channel, you type in Freedom's Call, for example, at BitChute, and it'll bring up, I think there's 800 or so videos in there, but the most recent ones will be at the top. Now, what we did last night, normally we have them up on Friday, which is today, but because of being on the road, our editing capability is diminished, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get them up until after the weekend, but we'll see.
All right, there you have it. USMCA is in the news. What are we talking about? NAFTA. But it's the, quote, replaced Donald Trump, supposedly refined, better version. And that kind of went in Donald Trump's first round as president of the United States. Now we're kind of in the second round, and they're, revisiting this thing now, Doctor?
Well, it has a review that has to be done by July 1st. I mean, we're talking, 7 weeks away. But here's the deal. The Canadians are reluctant, let's put it that way. Trump has offended them so much over the last period of time, and the imposition of tariffs. I mean, they're a longtime friend. We've got the same heritage. We've got same language largely. The French are spoken there too. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of reasons we're bound together. Our border is the longest border in the world, I believe, and it's an unprotected border largely. It's a little better than it used to be. But the fact of the matter is, Trump has been thumbing his nose, punching him in the face, punching him in the gut, and the Canadians are saying we're not going to do this. And so personally, if the USMCA went away, I'd be more than pleased. I mean, And honestly, the people that negotiated said it was NAFTA plus 20%. So it's NAFTA on steroids. Trump said NAFTA was the worst agreement ever made. And I don't know if that's exactly true, but it was really bad. And so they strengthened.
And he makes you believe that the USMCA was the best thing ever created, right?
Correct. But they incorporated, NAFTA plus 20%, and they incorporated the Trans-Pacific Partnership wording largely into it. And really and truly, it's a global regional arrangement under the United Nations. That's exactly what it is. And it's basically, like NATO is a regional arrangement for defense. This is an economic regional arrangement. It fits under the United Nations Charter. It is a step towards global, governance. And so, anyway, I think it's kind of a reflection of how offensive Donald Trump has been with people that historically we've had pretty good relationships with, when he's done everything in his power to offend them. I mean, he talked about putting Canada in as a 51st state. I mean, they're a proud country. What would we say? Oh, yeah, Mexico is going to include the United States as its next province or whatever, It's just, I don't know how someone could be that tone deaf and be a functioning human being, I guess. I mean, I'm really just shocked. And so right now, the Canadians are dragging their feet. If it doesn't get done by July 1st, we will probably have an annual review for the next, until 2037 or something. Say again?
6 weeks, whatever.
No, they're gonna review it annually for the next until 2037.
No, I know, but we've got 6 weeks for this annual review, basically.
Right, and I think the Canadians are just saying, well, not so fast. I think the Mexicans are kind of front and center, standing there wanting to do this, but see, Canada has a lot of natural gas. It has a lot of crude oil. It has automotive manufacturing. I mean, there's a lot of things that are synergistic with how we might feel if we had a good neighbor policy. And if you're
imagine a good neighbor policy. You mean we might be friends and trade, and I get a little bit of tariffs to cover the proper role of legitimate government. I get that, but we are tariffing people and playing games with tariffs and almost using tariff like a weapon of war, and it's concerning to me. And especially with the Canadians and others, it's like, hey, on one hand, you're saying you want Canadians or the Canadian country to be part of America, whatever. And on the other hand, you're saying, I'm just going to abuse you until you do. I mean, why would you do that knowing full well? It's kind of like, it reminds me of a girl that's dating a boy and he's treating her bad. And why would you marry him? So maybe I'm just confused, but I look at it kind of like that, Doctor.
Well, and people are wondering. I mean, when this went in Trump's first administration, the extreme, quote unquote, conservative, Mike Lee, for example, Utah senator, man, he was beating down Trump's door to say to get this thing brought together and approved before we get to the midterm elections, because he figured the Democrats weren't going to be in favor of it. Well, we didn't get that through. Until then, the Democrats did approve it, but the fact of the matter is, it's a bad agreement all the way around. Okay, so what do people say we should do? We should do basically these agreements, bilateral agreements. Us and Canada sit down and talk and get something good. Mexico and the United States sit down and talk and do something good. This idea of putting together a consortium that's going to, and by the way, it violates...
Because there's different needs, there's different products, there's different... And, in my opinion, trade should be when we want or need things that we don't have or that we, don't do well at or whatever else. In other words, there should be this reality check of, hey, you know what? Mexico, for example, might have a lot of crops that Canada can't grow very well or that we can't grow in some of the northern parts of the United States. And my whole point is that really a lot of this trade shouldn't just be about, hey, let's, let Mexicans have Florida orange juice and Canadians have Florida orange juice, and let's get our orange juice from Brazil. Okay, trade isn't just this stupid, we're going to just ship things, as far as we can for what reason. Trade should be logical, like we need certain things, we're not great at certain things, we'll excel at what we're great at and outsource the rest and vice versa. There needs to be an intelligence to our trade discussions, and it's nuanced based on every country we deal with. Would be a separate need and understanding, Doctor. Am I confused on this kind of stuff?
I don't believe you are, and I believe that's the way the founders did it. But let us never forget that Article 1, Section 8 is violated with these multinational agreements. Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. Instead of a body that's a compilation of their representatives and our representatives, and everybody sits down to the table and decides how we're going to do our trade. It violates congressional authority, constitutional congressional authority, and the problem is that Congress is complicit in this. They are shoveling their duties out the door. I don't know.
Well, they're too busy going on vacation, Doctor. Now they're basically back from vacation for a little bit, but then they're basically going to take off for, July, and then kind of gear up for a big old summer recess, and then they're going to basically go on, midterm election duty and whatever. And I mean, they're literally on permanent vacation for the most part. A few, very manipulative sellouts of the American people between. Other than that, so they come back and they sell us down the river with FISA 702, then they leave again, or they come back and that's all I'm seeing, really. I don't mean to be negative, but I don't see it any different.
Yeah, it's like Charlie Kirk used to say, prove me wrong. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're paying them, all of them are making at least $175,000 a year. Leadership gets more and so on committees and blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is that's a pretty good salary for somebody that works as little as they do. And so, I mean, hey, sign me up, baby. But at any rate, we don't seem to get this, and the members of Congress don't, and certainly the United States in its negotiations over this USMCA has lost track of a lot of fundamental principles that I think we really need to reinstill in their hearts again. So, I mean, you can see why people might have a kind of moment with this.
All right, there you have it. I just thought this USMCA thing should be discussed because with all the war going on and all the trade, no one's even talking about this hardly, are they, Doctor?
No, they're not. And here's the other things. We have, shutdowns and breakdowns and people not getting paychecks and inflation going wacko and prices of everything going through the ceiling, fertilizer's bad, gasoline price. And it's like, we don't need to. Well, don't look behind the curtain, said the Wizard of Oz as they were trying to figure out what they were going to do. And nobody's pulling back the curtain and looking at what the real duties are. And it's just a real challenge that we're being led by empty suits.
Amen. I don't know where to go with this. What do you think needs to be done?
Well, personally, I would say, hey, let's just not do USMCA anymore. We don't need to do the United Nations program.
So you just want to get out of it and then just start negotiating each deal country by country?
They're bilateral agreements. It's you and me, two parties to this.
And when you think about it, doesn't that have the interest of both countries in mind, where when you have these group interests, you get all kinds of 2, 3, 4, 5 players that have different agendas that all compete and cause problems. That's where a lot of this confusion is coming from, because then you get these global agendas involved, or you get bad actors involved in what could be legitimate two-way negotiations and et cetera. It just seems to me like this should be obvious to some of these people that are negotiating these things, right?
Well, look at the European Union. We've got a whole conglomerate of people that it's like, holy cow, how did this mishmash get together? And it's turned upside down and backwards because of all of the disastrous. Look at immigration because of them. Well, anyway, you can kind of get a point out of the European Union.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lot more to cover when we come back. I'm Sam Bushman. I've got Dr. Scott Radley with me. FreedomsRisingSun.com is his website. Check out his collegiate series, To Preserve the Nation. It's a DVD lecture series along with some workbooks, etc. It's a real educational opportunity. It's called To Preserve the Nation. That is the agenda, to preserve the greatest country on the face of the earth, and do so by focusing on God, family, and country, and fundamental principles that can save this nation if we make it happen. To preserve the nation is our goal. All right, freedomsrisingsun.com. You can also get your ticket to check out and be part of his weekly webinars every Thursday night. I'm Sam Bushman. We'll talk more. You are listening and watching Liberty Roundtable Live. God save our republic.